There we go. My bad. Technical difficulties. Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming to the podcast, live stream, and this year in review, end of year, intro to 2025, whatever you want to call it. I am here to present that to you. I hope you can hear me now. And so the reason why we're doing this tonight, normally I do these live streams on Tuesday night, but Tuesday is New Year's Eve. I figure you will be more interested in getting with friends and family, watching the ball drop, or, here in Georgia, we have the peach drop. I imagine there's just random things that drop from the sky during the last 10 seconds of the year. So I hope you guys have a great New Year's Eve, and going into New Year's, of course, please be very careful and be responsible as you do that. Uber is always an option. It's ironic that from the years of government-funded PSAs, it's actually Uber and Lyft that probably saved more people from drunk driving in our country, and that's due to the innovations of the marketplace. Awesome. I am wearing my University of Tennessee hoodie. Yes, I know we lost to Ohio State, but I'm still very proud to be a University of Tennessee fan. I'm a huge fan of college football. In fact, I got Ohio State hopefully upsetting Oregon, and Notre Dame and Georgia is going to be one heck of a game. Looking forward to it. I'm an SEC guy all around, so I really do hope we see the SEC triumph. But really, Tennessee, I want to be very, very clear. They had an awesome season. I'm very proud of it. And if we could have just beaten Arkansas, we would have had an automatic bye, I think, into the playoffs, and it would be a whole different story. But anyway, I'm looking forward to it. See some questions like, am I going to run for Congress in the future? Who knows? These signs behind me for Senate were when I ran in 2022. There's also some chase for president signs above that. So I don't know if I'd run for Congress in the future. Do I got siblings? Yeah, I got brothers. It's a good time. I enjoyed time with brothers. They are also Tennessee fans. And so I hope folks are excited to see college football. Of course, tonight, I do want to start off with the biggest news here, and I do have a guest with me. I'm going to throw him on in just a moment to talk about the big news that has happened in our country today with the death of Jimmy Carter. I'm a Georgian. It's obviously a thing that's pretty important to the people who live in Georgia, but it's also an international story. So we'll talk about that, but also we're going to talk about our year together as running mates, as libertarians traveling across the country, speaking the good message of liberty to people all across the country. And just to give you an introduction to my guest, I first met this guy at the Reno 2022 Libertarian National Convention. He was already running for president. I was still running for Senate at that time. I was taking it one race at a time, but this guy was already out there tabling for president, doing the work, putting his message out there. And when I met him, I thought, man, this is a real genuine guy. I would be happy to have this guy be running for office and representing libertarians. And lo and behold, less than a year later, I had run for Senate and I was jumping into the presidential race. And I got to know this guy really, really well throughout the process of the nominating convention and all that. So I want to bring him on right now. My running mate in the 2024 presidential contest. He was the Libertarian 2024 nominee for vice president. Here is Mike Termott. Hey, Mike, how you doing? Good to see you.
It's good to see you. Good to be with you. And you're right. We had quite some time not only to get to know each other, but to get to know a lot about a number of processes that we probably would be better off forgetting. But I'm grateful for all the stuff that we learned together.
Yeah, well, it was a great time traveling across the country. And, when you're running for the Libertarian nomination, unlike other political parties that have primaries that are taxpayer funded, that take money out of our wallet to fund a process to which we don't agree to, we do it the old fashioned way through the convention process. And that means libertarians attend statewide conventions and we crisscross the country. And of course, we run into each other, not just at conventions, but in airport lounges, and in hotel convention centers and things like this all the time. And so, in that process, I really got
the backs of airplanes.
Yeah, and airplanes. Yeah,
the backs of airplanes.
Well, that's for you and me, Mike. See, we once traveled with Lars Mapstead a couple of times.
We have great photographs of the back of Lars's head.
Yeah, because he was up front with the first class folks, because that's how Lars rolls. And me and Mike were in the back in steerage, and about we were practically in the luggage area of the plane. So, but luckily, that's how you roll when you're running as a libertarian most of the time, lean and mean, and that's what me and Mike got to do. And but again, shout out to
More
Lars
lean
too. He
than
was
mean,
also a
but
great guy
yeah.
to travel with too, even if he was riding in style a little better than we were. But you know what? I'm not here to be jealous, right?
I am. No, that's my job. I'm in charge of being jealous.
See, that's the thing. When you run for president, you have to be above such things. And the running mate, the VP, gets to be the jealous one. That's how it works.
Absolutely. I'll be your jealousy translator.
No, but really what's great about you, Mike, is you were a fantastic running mate. Like, I couldn't have asked for a better partner who was really willing to just kind
You're
of
too
roll with the
kind.
punches and just kind of be a support structure. Like, for the moment you won the nomination for VP, you were like, hey man, I'm here to be your partner and help you to do whatever you can to make this campaign as successful as we can. And I really felt that energy from you. And just to go back to like how we both became the nominee for president and vice president, I think a lot of it has to do with us working together on a stage. When Trump came and spoke at the convention, we got the chance to do a press conference afterwards. And after
That's exactly right. A lot of things went well, I thought, in that press conference. Notably, not everything did, but I thought that we learned that we could work together, and that we were on the same page as well as the same stage, and that is, after all, what it's all about. I think we also learned one of the things. You and I really haven't talked about that night, but one of the things that I remember being so impressed by was that whatever differences that you and I might have had, and they were damn small, they were really unimportant. You know what I mean? What really mattered was our ability to address the big issues and be on the same page, and to dovetail how we felt about certain things. And I say that in particular, remembering that there were plenty of circumstances where a question would be asked and one of us would answer, the other would have an opportunity, and we just said, no, let's go to the next question. He already answered it. You don't need another answer to that one. Let's cover more ground.
Yeah, and I think and as you said, we don't agree on everything, right? We're libertarians. We probably did like 23 debates against with all the other libertarian candidates across the country at different
Mostly,
conventions.
we were just looking for differences in how to say the same thing, to be honest. But
right, a lot of it was style, not really substance. Right, we're libertarians,
yeah, right.
And from where there were differences, I think we did a good job of covering much of the spread of the libertarian tent. And I think that our ticket really, to me, could appeal to a lot of people who maybe were tired of the two-party system. You had said you had traditionally come from the Republican Party. In fact, you actually had real-world experience working in a Republican White House, and you got frustrated with the Republican Party. You joined the Libertarian Party, and you did a lot of hard work within the party. I believe you're a lifetime member, just like I am. And I came to the party from the Democratic side of the aisle. I got frustrated with being a Democrat and realizing what a waste of time it was to be fighting within that duopoly.
They are parties that will frustrate you. Whichever one you come from, they do find a way to alienate people. That is the one thing that they have in common, of course. You're right. We do cover a lot of ground together, and it does reinforce the idea that, Americans tend to be quite libertarian. As we always say, most Americans have a libertarian element, a libertarian streak, a soft spot in their heart for what are, after all, traditional American principles. But the Republican Party and the Democratic Party don't do a very good job of representing those principles, what I think is really ironic. I mean, given they are organizations hell-bent on doing anything it takes to win votes, I think that they are at the moment missing a good bet. I do believe that they'll come around, but those are slow ships to turn.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think you predicted a great thing that we can predict for 2025 is that Democrats and Republicans will frustrate us, each of us, be you and me in particular. But that's a pretty good prediction. I do love this comment here. I just want to throw it up here. Mike Termott for Orlando mayor. Now, I just want to say this. Mike lives in Virginia, so I don't think he can qualify to run for the Orlando mayor. He'd be great for the position. but I'm sure there is a fantastic libertarian in Orlando who can do that. Mike,
Well,
I'm not going to tell you to run for
a good
governor
friend
of
of
Virginia or
ours.
anything, but you do what
Yeah,
you want to do. But or if you want to move to Orlando, I'm not going to stop you.
don't
Nancy might,
forget
but I'm
that
not.
Jim is on the city council in Altamont Springs. I would like to see Jim Turney running for mayor of Altamont Springs, which is a hop, skip, and jump away from Orlando.
Let's put that out in the atmosphere. And he is a fantastic guy. Jim Turney, he was part of the team. And see, this is one of the great things about us running together is we had people really blend our team together. And Jim Turney was a big part of that. He was somebody who was always willing to work hard. I mean, he drove for hours just to make sure. And I know it doesn't look it right now because I'm not in the kind of home studio he built for me. But he had an area with great lighting and everything and made sure I looked my best. It's not going on right now. So this is not. No shade. Don't throw any shade at Jim.
Not Jim's fault. You look fine, but
yeah. But now Jim is a fantastic guy.
Your
And we had a
representative
lot
is
of great
not
members
Jim's
of the
fault.
team who were fantastic, right? Sorry, spoke over you there.
No, it's true. We had a lot of talent on that team, and I think it was everything a campaign could be on a shoestring. The one thing that you and I learned is how important money is, and without it, it's a tough thing. I was really impressed by the extent to which Americans were open to our message, but you do have to have the coin to move the needle in a way that'll eventually get the attention of the media and other donors. It's a snowball effect, but to get that rolling, you need a real solid footing financially that we did not have.
Oh yeah, well, and I think that speaks to when people say, what's some criticisms of what did you not do right? Things like this. And, it's not about what we didn't do right. I think we did a lot of things right. It's a matter of there were a lot of things we just couldn't do. And if we had the resources, we would have done a lot of other things. Like I wanted to have a lot more kind of guerrilla on the street, kind of radical campaigning because I'm an activist. That's where I got to start was like marching in the street with a bullhorn in my hand. But you can't create that if you don't have the resources to get it done. We had to kind of run the standard campaign. You can't run the standard plus if you don't have the resources for the plus. And so we had to run the campaign that we needed to run to, spread the message as best we could. And I would say that is my biggest regret from the campaign is that we didn't have more resources to do more. I would have loved to have done more than we already did. That being said, we did quite a bit. We did send you all over the place, Mike. I got sent all over the place too. Shout out to our travel and logistics folks who were on the campaign who were scheduling the flights and the hotels and the events and all that stuff. Shout out to all of them who did really hard work. But I can say there are a few states really that I visited the most that I think really stick out for me. Is there any that kind of really stick out for you? I can personally say I was all over Texas. And in fact, we had a great time in San Antonio. That was a great time.
Yeah, you and I were both in Texas and a couple of times. And, Texas is always a tremendous amount of fun and a great place to be for libertarianism. Same thing with Iowa. One of the great joys of campaigning is doing the Iowa State Fair, of course. So you got that going for you. I enjoyed that a lot. The other thing that I in particular enjoyed, and this will not be obvious to a lot of people, but when we were trying to save money, right? And believe me, when you're a vice presidential nominee, a huge part of your job is to save money, right? You do not want to be burning up money that could be spent either through advertising or keeping your presidential nominee on the road. So a big part of my job was to save money. I really enjoyed being in the truck, going from, state fair to county fair to state fair to county fair. So I did a lot in the Virginia, Pennsylvania corridor. I was in Virginia, West Virginia, both ends of Pennsylvania, a lot. And driving back and forth between there and Chicago, for example, and just a lot of time. It can be very, very efficient when you're driving around. So all that was really terrific.
And yeah, shout out to Mike and his truck. I got to know Mike driving the truck through the streets of DC because we had to chase somebody who had the rest of our staff in a car, and they were driving quite somewhat erratic. I'll just say that. And so Mike had to keep up, and I could really see Mike being able to handle the truck through the streets of DC. So I imagine you were good on the highways.
I've spent a lot of time driving pickup trucks downtown DC, which is an awkward skill set. Mine is the truck with the ugly Libertarian Party stickers on the back bumper and the dents from having backed into trees, which is also in my wheelhouse.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just want to say, so folks say, I just saw one right there. It said Pennsylvania supports you. I'm trying to find that one again. Minnesota was pretty lit, says Matt Kowalski. I agree. Let's see. I'm trying to grab some more of these comments. A lot of them have come in while we were talking. But really, what I want to say is like, as a candidate for president, it can be stressful. That's, I think, an understatement. Same with running for vice president. But it's good to know when you got a team behind you. And like I said, from that first time meeting you back in Reno, all the way through the nominating process and the night of that press conference, stepping off when people were like, Chase and Mike and Chase, you guys are a good team. I realized there, and I still think one of the kind of the best moments, like when I just really felt like things were going to go well, was when you went up to the microphone and you accepted the offer to be the running mate. And you can hear it in the audience. It was kind of like everyone had been holding their breath and they could release and say, okay, let's get to work running for president. And that's what I really like to see from the party. And, going forward, it's something I'm going to keep working for. Like I said, I'm a lifetime member. Voted for y'all in Texas. All right. Thank you for Texas. We love that. Georgia here. Thank you.
Keep that up.
Chase, did you have a great campaign manager? Utah is pretty lit. Tons of libertarian talent here. Well, I will keep that in mind. The Mountain West has a fantastic.
Chase did have several great campaign managers, a lot of talent on that team, and several of those folks are young. Mm-hmm. And so I think, and this will not be lost on your audience, is you're young, and I hope that I have said this to you before, both publicly and privately. I hope that you will run again. It's probably not something that you want to do too often, but I think that you need to stay in this game. It's obvious that it's in your wheelhouse, that there is a certain skill set that goes with being a candidate that's a little bit different from being an activist, not completely different. Different than, being an administrator, different than being even in elected leadership inside of a party. There's something that's a little bit different about being a candidate. And it's something that, you just happen to be good at, right? And for that reason, I would encourage you to keep doing it.
Well, thank you. And that certainly might be happening again in the future, right? There's a lot of election cycles ahead of me. As you said, I'm young. Yep. I'm young for politics, right? I'm almost 40, which my nephews and nieces aren't going to call young. But in the world of politics, I am very young, right? So I got.
Well, yeah. I mean, apparently you're not allowed to be president unless you're going to be in your 80s, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the way it's working right now.
Right. So you got plenty of time.
And right now, like I just realized, and I did mention Jimmy Carter earlier. Joe Biden is now the oldest living current or former president. And and then after him is Donald Trump, right? So I got plenty of years ahead of me.
Bill Clinton is younger than these guys. Let that sink in. And he became president in 92.
When I was in elementary school.
He became president in 1992.
Think
about that.
You're blowing my mind, Mike. And but the truth is yeah. So I will probably run for something again, but my goal right now is to make sure that we have a fantastic libertarian party that can support candidates in the next few election cycles, while I prepare to probably run again one day. Like that'll probably be the future. 4 years, 8 years, 12 years, we'll figure that out. And there's other offices to run for too. That's the other thing is there's a lot of local government that might need some help. So my future,
absolutely.
2025 and beyond.
Move to Orlando and run for mayor.
That's what everybody's saying in the comments here. I don't know. I am a big Disney guy. Like I do like Disney World.
I
So
don't know what brought
Orlando
this up.
Mayor.
Why is the mayor of Orlando all of a sudden the race to watch?
I don't know. It just some people threw it in the comments, and I think it kind of picked up steam from there. But
I think it's a good idea.
Hey, who knows? Hey, there's a candidate running for Orlando Mayor. I will travel there to support that candidate, if for no other reason than to use it.
As you know, there have been police challenges there, law enforcement challenges and police challenges in particular. But I also believe that you might be able to make hay out of the fight between Disney and Ron DeSantis. Maybe there's a city of Orlando issue to be had there, which I think could be kind of funny. My understanding, I guess Disney is not legally part of the city, but that's, maybe one of the things that you could rail against is the idea that we need more democracy brought to bear on Disney. You'll come up with some angle. But I think
one of the things I always
Orlando
loved about Disney is, right, they didn't own their own. They were their own thing up until a couple of years ago. DeSantis got the state involved.
Right.
But before that, they were my answer for who's going to build the roads, right? When they would say, well, you're a libertarian, who's going to build the roads? I said, well, Disney builds their own roads. They maintain their own infrastructure. They collect their own garbage. They have their own fire department. They have everything you would need. And it's the best in the state because why? They have a vested interest in making sure that their area is clean,
exactly right.
Beautiful.
So there can be some going back and forth with how these things are managed. I love the idea. As a matter of fact, you could run to sell off parts of Orlando to other businesses.
Hey, you know what? That was the old Larry Sharp idea about the Brooklyn Bridge, brought to you by Coca-Cola, right? Like
that's exactly what I was thinking about. Is Larry's idea is exactly that. Larry did an essay for me in a book of essays that we published last year. It's a good read if anyone's interested in the Larry Sharp advertising on public bridges idea.
Yeah, well, check it out. And I believe that is available on Amazon, correct? If they search for the Gold New Deal.
Yes, you can go look for Gold New Deal, the book on Amazon.
There you go. There's a free plug and a shout out to my running mate. I had to make sure
and you can read yourself some Larry Sharp right there.
Yeah, exactly. There's lots of great stuff in there. But really the truth is, this year has not just been a presidential campaign for you and me. It's been a crazy year full of news and events. And, I always joke that it is not the, they always say it's the most important election of our lifetime. I don't say that because they're all important, but I do think this was the most kind of maybe unique election cycle in my lifetime. In terms of we had another major independent third party candidate in the race who then dropped out, endorsed one of the major party candidates. We had a shooting attempt. We had a candidate who was originally going to be the incumbent president who then really fouled it up in a debate and had to switch gears to another candidate for president who had never won a primary. Like, it was a really weird election cycle. And, I'm kind of excited that I was part of that. I don't know about you, but
it was weird. There were weird things. Other elections have had weird things. But the other thing that I would argue is that doesn't necessarily make it the most important cycle. As you and I have observed and lamented, there were a lot of areas in which the Republican Party and the Democratic Party didn't have such distinct ideas. It's not like one side or the other was doing a good job of articulating how it was going to reduce the debt, slow down government spending, stop inflation, build a foreign policy that would start keeping us more safe instead of, casting us into more and more dangerous territory. They're really, on the biggest issues, it would be hard to argue that they were doing a good job of differentiating from each other in terms of having great ideas. One could build a pretty good argument that the election was relatively unimportant regarding, the two of them.
Yeah, I would argue that it was an election that for many voters was based on vibes, because you're right, the policy differences weren't that much. Like, look at protectionism and tariffs, look at the treatment of immigrants, right? Like, So many people thought they were voting for Kamala Harris because of how bad Donald Trump is on immigration. But I just read a story today about a woman who, her and her 2 children, born in this country, are American citizens, were deported with their mother back to the country of origin by the Biden administration. And so, like, it's an election based on vibes, because if it was based on policy, there's not a whole lot of daylight, again, on the most important issues, as you said, foreign policy being a big one. Like, look at the
That's right.
response to, the Israel-Gaza war from both the Republicans and Democrats. Not a lot of, daylight between them, except for in terms of vibes and in terms of the style. And then, of course, there was the distraction that was brought to us and to the voters in terms of the culture war and in terms of a lot of things that really, are either local issues, individual issues that were made into national issues. I'm talking about things like, making Springfield, Ohio, the center of
Eating
attention
squirrels,
for 2 weeks,
right?
right? For eating cats and dogs, or all that stuff. Like, there was a lot of distraction stuff.
There were a lot of distractions, and I think one of the ironies is that I've really enjoyed, to try to give positive kudos where they're due, I have really enjoyed the basic ideas involved in the Doge movement, right? The Department of Government Efficiency. Obviously, the jury is out on how good an idea we're all going to think this is, looking in hindsight, in the future. But I can't help thinking that if the Trump campaign had talked about that idea earlier on, I'm pretty sure we would have been supportive of that basic concept. If someone had stood up and said, you know what, we're going to put together an organization that's going to be technically and legally outside of the government, but it's going to funnel ideas and continuously review, what it is the government is doing that's dumb, and help us build political momentum against those ideas. I think, a lot of us would have been like, shit, that sounds like it might be a fun idea. And it's one that really only gained traction after the election. I find that totally ironic.
Yeah, and for me, I want to be optimistic, right? I'm a glass half full guy. If we can get lots of great ideas to cut government, and the thing is getting Congress to actually implement those ideas. And what I hope is that we're not just saying, here's where we can cut government so that I can work around and make every dollar that I can, right? That's what I don't want to see. What I want to see is really hitting the things that really drive the debt and deficit the most. I want to see what they talk about entitlement reform. I want to see what their plan is on Social Security or on Medicare and Medicaid. I don't want to see, hey, here's $5 million for researching salmon in upper, in Washington State.
Right. That is all. Cut that out and save $5 million.
Like, right, and that's all bad. And I'm not saying that stuff should stay. That stuff should immediately be eliminated. But that is small potatoes. We got to. My thing is,
they turn into distractions.
Exactly. That's the thing. I don't want to see little distractions. I want to see big billion-dollar ideas, multi-billion-dollar ideas that are going to reduce government, streamline it, make it more effective and efficient. I hope I see that. Now, there have been blue ribbon commissions and other kinds of things in the past, and people were very optimistic in the Reagan administration, in the Bush administration, the second, the W administration. Of course, 9/11 really, let's just say, any idea of fiscal conservatism got thrown out the window on 9/12 because the military-industrial complex. Right.
To your point about Jimmy Carter being, an important player in American politics, to whom we have to pay some respect today, of course. When he came into the White House, this is arcane trivia for you. He was the first guy in the century to zero base the budget and require everybody to justify the program expenditures from zero up instead of from the baseline down. And the White House staff exploded, hated the idea. And as you might imagine, I mean, if your job had been, we focus on 2% up or 2% down, but we all know that the gravy train is going to stay on the tracks for the most part. And all of a sudden, some dude comes in from Georgia and says, I want to know why this program exists at all. Yep. Holy cow. That's a tough day for a low-life financial economist in the White House like I was 20 years later.
Yeah, and like I can say, again, we don't have to agree with all of Jimmy Carter's politics, right? Like you and me ran on eliminating the Department of Education, which is something he implemented, right? So we don't have to agree with all of his politics to say there are some good things on the edges that he did that I think he's a much better ex-president, right? I think that's the going, the kind of the knowledge that most people have is that he was a better ex-president and a president, but he did do some things like deregulated home brewing, deregulated some industries. But of course, he then created the Department of Education, other things.
Because he was a Georgian.
You're grading
so
on a
he
curve.
Appreciated the home brewing.
One of the things I did like is he did issue an executive order that said, legislation and regulation should be as plain spoken as possible, which of course was promptly ignored by every lawyer whoever wrote legislation after that, right?
That is as plain spoken as I want to make it would be the answer rhetorically.
Right. Like, and for Jimmy Carter, I mean, I think that has to be because he's from Plains, Georgia, and there's a lot of plain spoken, no pun intended there, folks who didn't understand what was going on in their name. And so like, that's probably a good thing that if I were to be elected, I'd probably want to put an executive order out saying, hey, my staff, if you're going to put something out, it has to be as plain spoken as you can. And we're going to fight tooth and nail to make Congress do the same. Right. But for me, my thing is that he was a great ex-president. He was somebody who continued to teach Sunday school. He remained a devoted husband for 77 years. He built homes for the homeless with Habitat for Humanity. He did found the Carter Center, which many times been an election observer around the world. And he always constantly banged the drum on the need for peace in a region of the world that we're still seeing much strife going on, right?
Absolutely.
And he was very plain spoken about that too. If you read the book Peace, Not Apartheid.
Very plain spoken guy, extremely down to earth, an extraordinarily ethical guy. And remember that is why he came to power. Remember that in 76, he's the governor of Georgia, which means absolutely nobody outside the state knew who this guy was. Absolutely no idea who this guy was. And through sheer will and hard work, he got his name out there. But the straw that stirred the drink was his ability to portray himself accurately, correctly, as a very down-to-earth guy, which was a huge contrast to whatever bullshit the Republican Party was throwing out there. Remember that Watergate broke only a couple of years later, and Nixon was a guy who came to power despite everybody recognizing that he was a bit of a jerk. But people believed, well, in a world in which being a jerk gets you ahead, he's going to be our jerk, right? And no one ever accused Richard Nixon of being an exemplary super ethical guy before Watergate broke, but it was really a watershed moment in Americans' understanding of politics. And so the table was really set for someone who is not only an outsider to Washington, but in a lot of ways, an outsider to the culture of what we had come to expect from politicians.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think it is the fact that, like you said, we were coming out of Watergate. We had Gerald Ford, who was actually the first president to never be elected, right? Because he was appointed vice president and became president after the resignation, right? So he'd never been elected, but he was a creature of Washington, D.C. Had been a long-term member of Congress and a vice president, and had then pardoned Nixon, which, of course, created a prime for a lot of people to be upset about the climate of Washington, D.C. And that's why he did.
And remember, the reason he was appointed vice president was because Spiro Agnew was carted off to jail because he was a crook, which is one of the most extraordinary scandals in American political history that no one ever pays any attention to because it was overshadowed. I mean, think about it. Finding out the vice president of the United States is a crook And nobody cares because, as it turns out, the president was a crook. It was just scandal on top of scandal. So you can see why people would rally around a nice guy.
Now, Mike, was it because it was overshadowed by Watergate, or is it because the vice president did it? Remember, Dick Cheney shot a guy in the face, and that guy apologized to Cheney, right? Like, it just seems
I'm
like
sorry,
you
my
could really
face
get
got
away
in the
with a
way
lot
of
of
you
stuff.
shooting that bird.
Yeah. So,
well, having run for vice president myself, I do have some sympathy for the anonymity argument. You may be right. Nobody cared because, it's the vice president. He's just a politician. No, nobody. We can find another vice president. That's no big loss.
Well, what I want to say is a better vice presidential running mate, a guy I could not have found. Again, I am really happy that we got to run for office together. And, unfortunately, when you're running for office, you don't get to do a lot of events together, really, because
that's the point is to stay apart, right?
Yeah. But I did get, we did get a chance to meet up at the launch party in Atlanta. That was a great time. You got to meet my family. And then in Texas and some other places.
We took a lot of money from people together at a party in Texas. I remember that.
Oh man, I just remember San Antonio, us shooting video in the San Antonio in the summer in San Antonio in full suit and tie, and how humid it was, and like we were both just like, oh my God, let's just get the shot. And you know what? It really does encourage you to be the best on the first take when you realize that if you can get it done in one take, you can get the heck out of the sun.
Yeah,
right?
The punishment for forgetting your line was standing there in the humidity for another 10 minutes. Yeah.
It
focuses you.
It does. It really gets you, in line when you have to do stuff. But I just want to say you're a hell of a guy, and you're somebody that, again, I got to kind of just know through the campaign trail, and maybe the things you don't really see on the campaign trail so much when you're the candidate that you get to know you is, you're a fun guy. You had a great sense of humor. You're really somebody who tried to keep the staff uplifted as much as you could. But also, you're somebody who was pretty straightforward, like, hey, I like this or I don't like this. And here's why, right? Which is a great working partner. That's what you need when you're running for something and you have a running mate, is somebody who's going to say, hey, this works great or this isn't working great.
Well, sometimes certain things need to be said that shouldn't be said by the presidential nominee. Sometimes certain things need to be said by someone that you could shoot and throw overboard if you had to. And that's my job.
Hey, well, again, a better partner we could not have asked for. And I really, appreciate that. And like, as we're kind of thinking about this year, we're thinking about the year going forward. And my question, just kind of off the top of my head, you got any New Year's resolutions? I'm getting more fit. Like, I've started working out after the election, kind of losing some of the poundage that I gained during the election, and getting more fit. Because you saw I was eating like crap on the election, on the campaign trail. And that's totally not voluntary. It was totally not me only wanting to eat fast food all the time. So I've devoted to getting a little bit healthier in the new year. Just wondering, is there anything you're looking forward to doing in the new year, or are you just going to keep on trucking and rocking and rolling?
Yeah, a few things. Number one, I'm not going to let anyone drive me around anymore. I'm going to do my own driving. No matter how many trees I back into, it's my life. And if I want to back into a tree once in a while, I'm going to do that. And I don't like people driving me around. That's number one. Number two, I'm going to do some interviews next year. I'm going to get back in the truck. I'm going to get on the road, and this is your warning. I'm going to go visit some folks and do some interviews that I think are important, and get some opinions on where we're going in the future. I want to be more future focused. I think that we necessarily need to be. I think that each one of us needs to do some soul searching, and I also believe that we need to do that as a party. And we've all said that, of course. That means different things to different people, and maybe that means that we change a whole lot. Maybe it means we don't change much of anything. But I think that we need to really, as a group of libertarians, the couple thousand of us who are active in this party, I think that we need to think real hard about what it is that we want from the world, what we want to do about that, and how each one of us can play a role. So I'm going to be going around doing some interviews, me interviewing the people in which I'm, from whom I'm interested in hearing. So I'm going to get involved with that. I'm going to do some focus groups. I'm very excited about that. My first idea was to get a new vehicle and interview people in the back of an Uber, but that idea I think has been played out, and I don't have enough money to buy another car. So, and apparently Uber doesn't like the idea of people riding around in my Labrador Retriever infested Silverado. So I'm going to do some focus groups in a more traditional format. So I'm very excited about that. I'm going to be doing a little bit of media work with Grumblings Media. I don't know if you know those guys, Big John. I'm going to be doing some stuff with them. Not a big deal. They've got all kinds of stuff going on. I'm just going to do a political weekly update with them, just kind of something fun. So I'm looking forward to that. So, just a hodgepodge of stuff in which I'm interested, and stay future focused. It's what it's all about.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to be looking forward to that, and I'll make sure to shout that out and share that as I see it come through, and looking forward to that. My 2025, kind of similar. I'm going to be doing some interviews, even starting in January. I'm going to be doing some podcasting and things like that, interviews as well, and trying to, kind of talk about where I do want to see the party going. So I think we got something simpatico there. Now, I won't be doing a political update kind of podcast or live stream. I'm right now working on producing a Star Trek themed podcast. You know me, Mike. I'm a big Star Trek fan.
That's awesome.
Yeah, another friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours, who's also a huge Star Trek fan. During the campaign, we said to each other, no matter how this thing goes, let's do something fun after November and do something. So we're going to hopefully get that rolling in the new year as a non-political thing to talk about. It's always good to have hobbies, right? And then I'm going to be staying busy, trying to do what I can, and helping to spread the message of professionalism and ethics to the Libertarian Party, and hopefully traveling to a few states and attending to some conventions and meeting some other great libertarians and encouraging folks to come out and get involved in their state and to really build our party up for the future, as you said. So that's
good for you. I hope you hit every single one of them. By the way, I'm going to the Mississippi convention in January, like 4 weeks from now. So anyone out there in Mississippi, come out and let me shake your hand.
Shout out to Libertarian Party of Mississippi. I do, anytime you mention a state, because I've been to all of them now, I got a story to think about. And mine is when I was in the city of Gulfport, Mississippi, and I was speaking to a group of business owners who wanted to turn an old church in downtown into a medical cannabis dispensary and clinic, and they were denied this, even though medical cannabis had been legalized in the state. The city had zoned cannabis to like the edge of town. And, I just remember talking to these business owners.
It's legal if you can find a place to do it. And we decided it ain't here.
Right. And what the big irony was is that there was an opiate pill mill like down the street. You could see it from this place. And so it was very easy for Big Pharma to push their products out to people, but the local government decided that cannabis was far too dangerous. And so it's just stories like that I got as I traveled across the country, hearing from people about their concerns about how government was screwing them over or pushing them down or kicking them to the side. And that's what inspires me to continue to be a libertarian, to continue to telling these stories, and to continue identifying areas where we can make a difference. And I know you're going to be doing that in the new year as well. Last little bit before I let you go, because it is the big story that's been happening since Christmas. Doge versus MAGA. Before Donald Trump is even taking office, we're seeing inter-party conflict. If you thought inter-party conflict was just for the Libertarian Party or just for the Democrats, you're wrong. It's also happening right now amongst two wings of Trump's kind of base of support. I would call it the Doge wing and the MAGA wing, just kind of colloquially there. But it's really Elon Musk saying that, hey, he supports visas to bring over high talent, very high skilled talent. And he says that's what helped build Silicon Valley. It's what helped build his business. He came to this country on such a visa and is now the richest man in the world. This is what can be provided. And there are others who are extreme kind of immigration restrictionists who think this is a bad thing and that we only have to train people here. We can't bring people in from around the world. I know I kind of fall more on the, hey, let immigrants who are really talented come here and work here so that we don't have a brain drain away from us, right? If you leave those talented people, say in China or in India, when they develop a business that makes a lot of money,
that's
guess where
exactly
Americans
right.
are going to go?
Well, hell, I mean, you and I want more, immigrants to the United States, even if they're not super geniuses. I think that it's, the reasons you and I have been so pro-immigration over the years is because we recognize that immigration is good for the United States and all kinds of reasons, not just because you got super geniuses coming in, but it's good for us culturally and socially. Entrepreneurialism is not just about a couple of billionaires. It's about that feeling that you're going to start, that you're going to begin, that you're going to do something that not only you haven't done before, but maybe no one has done it before. Just that's part and parcel of America continuously reinventing itself, is bringing in people who are helping us reinvent ourselves. And I think that truly, I'm hoping that these wings of the Republican Party get on the same page at some point. They may well be more than we sense, right? The media looks for wedges and tries to separate people. So I don't mean to be insensitive to that, because I'm sure there is some of that going on, blowing things out of proportion. But the truth is that even the most ardent conservatives would not argue that the way to make America great is to go back to something, right? The way to make America great is to make it great again, as we have made America great every time America becomes great. And I would argue that's every hour of every day of every year, right?
And it's not because of the government either. It's the people that make this country great, certainly not its government.
That is exactly right. And so, this should be a dovetail. This should be people working together and who are on the same page. So I look forward to the Republican Party getting their messaging a little bit more unified.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how it goes, and we'll see, if it continues to be the same kind of DC shit show that it's been for my entire adult life, right? We'll see if things change, or we'll see if things stay the same. Either way, people are going to continue to do their best with their lives, their family, and their community. And immigrants are a part of that too. From the kid whose parents came to this country, own a corner store, and then they end up starting a business that becomes a tech startup, becomes $1 billion company. Or if you think about, you want a real world example, think about the fact that Steve Jobs was the son of immigrants. And that he helped create Apple and made it into the tech giant that it is. And that there's a lot of Fortune 500 companies, and heck, a lot of just small businesses, local restaurants and furniture stores and car washes and whatever. They own all kinds of businesses in this country, and they help add to that economic pie.
Immigrants are naturally more entrepreneurial than people who are born in the United States in many cases, because they have to, because they haven't had access to the same types of capital development as people born here. But it's also true that it's an entrepreneurial person who will, pick up and move to the United States. Those are the kind of people that you want in your country, the kind of people you want as your neighbors.
There you go. Joe Hanu says, my immigrant parents have been small business owners for decades. Joe, your story is the story of a lot of people in this country. And let's be real, like, it's something that I do hope, eventually we do see a more sanity play out in terms of immigration policy. Like, I want to see, I ran on the 21st century Ellis Island. I'll continue to put that policy out there and hoping that somebody adopts it, somebody realizes it's a good idea who's actually elected into office. But absent that, I think, I'm going to continue to push for the idea that immigrants just add to the economic pie. They make it bigger, they make it better. and they allow for more opportunity. And God knows we need more people in this country to help replace workers who are retiring. We're seeing a large portion of our working population over the last 15 years and in the next 15 years that will be retiring. And we need workers to replace that who can then continue to help grow this economy, continue prosperity, become innovators, become job creators, become parents who raise kids. This is what we want to see in this country. And so for me, again, we'll kind of putting a bow on the live stream tonight. I know we're getting close to the 10 o'clock hour. But that's kind of the story is, hey, as we enter 2025, remember this: no matter who had won the election in 2024, even if it had been you and me, Mike, and we would have done a lot of great stuff. I guarantee you, we definitely would have been different. It would not have been the same old DC shit show. It would have been a whole different DC
It would have been a completely different DC shit show. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah. But no matter who won the election, it's still going to come down to individuals doing good in their community and doing their best to make the best out of the situation they can, to continue to survive and thrive and innovate and bring about new ways to create wealth and prosperity. And we need to get the government the hell out of the way of those people. As long as you're being peaceful, your life's your life, your body's your body, and your business is your business, and your property is your property. And so I'm going to go into 2025 with that mindset. I hope everybody who's watching this live stream can go into 2025 with that mindset. I just want to say I'm again thankful that you were my running mate. I couldn't have asked for a better guy, especially when it came down to, hey, you kind of ended up choosing me in that process, and I'm thankful you did.
Well, I'm very thankful too. It was a great opportunity for which I'm grateful. And the party gave us an opportunity. It was a growth experience for us. I thought you did a great job of representing the party and the principles of the party, and did so in a very consistent and very ethical fashion. So thanks for everything that you did for the party, and perhaps even more importantly, for the movement, for our philosophy, for libertarianism.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to seeing what you get up to in 2025. And of course, you can always join me on one of these live streams. But I'm going to let you go, Mike. Thank you so much for giving us some of your time. Give my best to the family. And
thank you. Nancy says hi.
Excellent. Excellent. I love her. She's so great. And she proves that libertarian wives always are fantastic in this world. So I'm going to wish you a happy 2024. I hope you had a great holiday.
You take care. It's good to be with you. I look forward to doing it again.
Awesome. Peace, love, and liberty. And thank you for all of you who have joined me on the live stream today. I do these usually on Tuesday. I won't be doing it this Tuesday because that is New Year's Eve. Again, I encourage you to have a great time on New Year's Eve with friends, family, loved ones. Do so responsibly. Again, if you could consume, please use Uber, Lyft, or a designated driver that can help you get home safe, because we want to make sure everybody starts off 2025 safe, happy, and healthy. And with that, I just want to say thank you very much for everybody who watched. We'll be back to our regular Tuesdays after this week, so join us on there. And again, we're also going to start TikTok live streaming as well, now that it looks like maybe that platform is going to be around for a little bit longer than we originally anticipated. So thank you very much to each and every one of you. Peace, love, and liberty to you and all those you know. Merry Christmas to those who celebrated. Happy Hanukkah to those who are continuing to celebrate. Happy Kwanzaa to those who are observing. And whatever you're celebrating, make sure you do it with love and light in your heart. Goodbye.